In this video, I'll give you a lesson on how to play the Revolutionary War duty call, Drummer's Call. Drummer's Call, or Drum's Call, was used to summon all of the drummers for various duties. It's very helpful to recognize this call early on. The level of difficulty means this should be the 8th duty call you learn, and 19th lesson overall. Make sure you have your drumsticks and drummer drum pad set up. In this lesson, I'll play to demonstrate phrases, and then give you time to play along to music or audio. Note, you should know how to play 9-stroke rolls, flams, and flam taps before playing. If you don't, check out my video, Flams, Lesson 6, and 9's Lesson 18. In Lesson 9, open beating number 4, we discussed how to recognize and count eighth notes. As you should know by now, eighth notes can be recognized by their filled-in heads and the single bar or flag. In 2/4, each eighth note is worth a half a beat. When we read them in music, we count 1 and 2 and. The 1, 2, etc. match each step, while the and comes directly between steps. Poorly timed eighth notes are the biggest cause of rushing or speeding up the beat. To develop your eighth notes and prevent yourself from rushing, a great practice resource is a metronome. You can download free metronome apps. I recommend Metronome Beats. Set your metronome to 60 or 75 beats per minute, depending on which speed you want to develop. Most metronomes have an option to adjust clicks per beat. Set this to 2. Remember, eighth notes are 2 per beat. When you hit start, you'll hear a loud click for the beat. We want our 1, 2, etc. to match that main click. You'll also hear a soft click. That matches the and. You shouldn't rely exclusively on metronomes when you practice, but they're phenomenal for identifying your weaknesses. Try this practice exercise with a set of flam taps to warm up for Drummer's Call. I've already set up the metronome at 75 beats per minute with the and click. Pay close attention to whether or not the flam is matching the big click. If you notice your flams consistently came early, before the big click, you're rushing the beat. This will speed up the march. To fix this, you need to slow down your tap. You're playing the tap too quickly, which means you then rush the next thing, which is the flam. Think about lifting the tap hand higher before playing. This will naturally slow you down. If you're having the opposite problem, your flam's consistently coming after the big click, then you're dragging the beat and will slow down the march. This is because you're taking too long to play the tap. I'd recommend going back to the basics and practicing your downstrokes into taps. Most likely, the high hand and your flam are rebounding too high after the flam, meaning you need to move more quickly to get them down for the tap. Try the flam practice again, this time focusing on the tap hand to correct your timing. Drummer's Call is broken down into 2 phrases. Phrase 1, short phrase, and phrase 2, the long phrase. Before we begin, we'll start with a review of our triplet 9-stroke rolls and work on the basic concept of moving from a triplet 9 into the first flam. Both phrases in Drummer's Call begin with a triplet-based 9-stroke roll directly into a right-handed flam. So we're going to work on getting that timing correct first before we move on. To start, let's just warm up our triplet-based 9-stroke roll. So play a skeleton, play 1 E and a na 2, 1 E and a na 2, and then the roll. So if you're playing those well, you already have the concept of how this rhythm should work. What we're going to do now is replace that right stroke that comes after the roll with a right-handed flam. So it'll end up being one and a flam. The trick of this is that your left hand has just done a lot of work getting that roll. Now it has to stay low to be part of that grace note and immediately go into the flam. So what I want to practice right now is first the skeleton. When you finish the roll though, so the one and the na, when you play that na to end the 9-stroke roll, I want you to make sure that it's a downstroke, that you're holding it nice and low. And then instead of playing just a right stroke, to complete the skeleton, we're going to actually play a right-handed flam. So it'll sound like one and the na, the downstroke, so I'm set up for a flam, and then a right-handed flam. One and the na, flam. Let's actually open it up and slow it down a little bit. One and the na, flam. So again, the major focus you want is to keep the left hand low and set yourself up for that right-handed flam. One and the na. Go ahead and play just that skeleton a couple of times through with that focus on the final flam. So hopefully you're getting a good flam coming out of that roll. Now what we're going to do is play the skeleton roll exercise. So you're going to start with your one and a na flam twice. Now the roll. One and a na flam, one and a na flam. You might find when you go into the roll, this is a little bit harder because you're moving from playing those double strokes on your left hand to now you have to convince yourself to play a downstroke and really control that final stroke, squeeze right as it hits the drum head and really keep it down low. Otherwise, you're going to find that you're going to start having a very sloppy flam or a very late flam. Right. So again, you're going to play the skeleton twice. One and a two flam, one and a two flam. But keep that left hand low and then rolls. Phrase one is a short phrase. We're going to begin with the 9-stroke roll into the flam, just like we practiced before. So again, keep the left hand nice and low, and then your flam. Following that first flam, or really that first flam begins a set of flam taps. So you should recall flam taps from the long march. So if we ignore the 9-stroke roll for just a second, that right-handed flam, the right flam, right tap, pop the left hand up, play a left flam, left tap, and then we'll play one final right flam to end the phrase. So flam right, flam left, right hand flam. Practice just that part just to kind of warm up your flam taps. Flam right, flam left, right flam. Now we'll add the 9-stroke roll back in. So remember what we worked on before. You play your 9, keep your left hand nice and low, really squeezing your thumb to catch it as low as you can. And that sets us up to start those flam taps. So all together it'll sound like this. Flam tap, flam tap, flam. Again. So if you notice, just like we were working on before in our skeleton roll exercise, we move pretty quickly out of that 9-stroke roll right into the flam. But then you have to remember to kind of slow it back down, because the 9-stroke roll is this tight triplet formation, and then the flam taps are this kind of open 8th notes. So one more time. Practice that phrase a couple of times. So when we play the drummer's call, play phrase 2 twice in a row. So let's work on how that timing sounds. So your triplet 9 begins on the beat. So we play that first phrase. 1, 2, 3. So that right flam is on a beat or on a step, and the 9 will begin on the next step. So you have to make sure that you're giving about a half a beat of pause from the end of the flam until your 9 starts. So when they put together, they sound like this. So it's not a very long pause, but there is a pretty decent one. So just think about if you were marching, you would start the 9 on your left foot, you would start the right flam on your right foot, and then we'd get back to the next right flam on our right foot as well. And then we need to wait until our left foot comes down before we start the next 9. So one more time through. Then tap, that, and 9. So now practice the phrase 1 twice over, really focusing on that slight rest between the repeat. And make sure that you can play that a couple of times. Phrase 2 is just a longer version of phrase 1. So we're still going to start with our triplet 9-stroke roll into that flam. Now, instead of playing one set of flam taps, we're going to play about 3.5 sets of flam taps. So from the 9-stroke roll, you play 1, second set, third set, and then for the last part, we'll just play 1 flam tap and then a final left flam. You can think about it as 3.5 sets, or you can also think of it as 7 flam taps and a final flam. Altogether, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and final flam. Again. Drummer's call altogether is played phrase 1, and then phrase 2. The end of phrase 2, there is 1 beat of rest before repeating back to the beginning. Listen to drummer's call twice through. Now try playing along the drummer's call. I'll give 4 clicks, and then we'll start on the beat for that first 9-stroke roll. Make sure you can comfortably play along to the recording all the way through before moving on. Once you've got this beating down, move on to the next lesson. If you want a recording of just the full beating, check out my video